consultant. That's part of my story, so I'm going to wait until my turn. Over to the next person.
Thanks, Jean. Over to you, Robin.
Hi everyone, my name's Robin. I'm the CFO of Workwear Group, which is a Wesfarmers business, so one of the ASX businesses in Australia. It turns over about $44 billion. And I'm going to be talking to you today about the career progression strategies for career progression.
Thanks heaps, Robin. It's great to see you again.
Good to see you, Joey.
Hasina.
Hi everyone, I'm Asina Ranevo. I'm from Madagascar, and I'm over 28 years of professional experience now. I'm a global executive coach and also an entrepreneur. And what I'm going to share with you today is what is the role of coaching in career transformation. So I can't wait to be there.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm super excited to hear your story, Hasina. Over to you, Sam.
Hi everyone, I am Sam Hussain-Lech. I'm based here in London at the moment, and I've got a family sleeping downstairs, so I'm going to keep my voice down a little bit, but hopefully you can hear me fine. I have about 30 years experience in financial services and have worked in Australia for the majority of my career actually, and then recently moved back to the UK where I'm originally from. I'm currently the head of industry relations and operations for Square. Square are a payments and technology company. They do pretty well in Australia. They're a lot smaller in the UK, so really exciting to come over here with a very different challenge. And yeah, really happy to talk to you about my career and the twists and turns and ups and downs and where I'm at right now, and hopefully have something to share with all of you.
So Sam, take it off. Tell us about where you started and where you are today.
Would love to. And why don't I do that with kind of like, maybe I'll share some of the key highlights and key lowlights in that. So I started my career on a graduate program after trying, if anybody either has a grad, can you hear me okay, by the way?
Sam, people are just going to move up for those that can't hear, so just bear with the movements.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Sorry, just 2 secs.
Do you think on sound?
No, I think it's fine.
Is that a VKTO series? Sorry, Sam.
2 secs.
No problem. Let me know when you're good.
Well, it normally does. Had to go all the time, but of course Justin seemed to be confused, but it's synced on here. It is synced, so no? Okay. No.
Set the speaker. Here we are.
Right,
Same as system as
right down the bottom. Audio.
which one is it?
It's not there.
V?
No.
Try
It's
where it says same as system.
Should be Bluetooth. If you go to there, it's this one, Megaboo. Yeah, maybe we just leave it.
Might need to just leave it.
Yeah, that's all right. Sorry, guys, it was working up until that. See, Murphy's Law. Okay.
That's okay. Hang on, Sam, before you dive in, can I hold it just one sec? If anyone can't, just come up. I'm going to give the work back to you, right?
Yeah.
All right, Sam, over to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, okay, all right. So where was I? I was on a grad program, and I guess kind of key parts to my story is being a minority in working in financial services, which I know some of you come from a financial services background. Being a female and being a woman of color is you're in the minority automatically in that type of industry. So started on a grad program. I was the only female on the program, and the only person of color on the program as well. Great experience though, and that's what led me to Australia. I had the opportunity at the end of my grad program to come on a year secondment. I did everything that my mother was hoping that I wouldn't do, and I fell in love with the country, and I fell in love with somebody and ended up staying for 16 years. So what was meant to be a year secondment ended up being 16 years, and you know, it's an amazing country, so why wouldn't you stay? During that period, very early on in my career, I was made redundant. So the GFC hit 2008, and my company was kind of like smack bang in the middle of all of those issues that, and so my company actually closed all of their offshore businesses. So it was, you know, being made redundant, for anyone who's been through it, is never a nice experience, and it's always unexpected. But I think in that moment, because it was very early on in my career, it made me realize, you know, what I was really after, and that was to stay in Australia at the time. So I managed to get another opportunity that gave me a new experience of moving into payments. So previously I was in home loans, and then I moved into payments. You know, pretty junior role, but a role that gave me end-to-end experience in payments, and then gave me what I thought at the time was an opportunity of a lifetime. So I was actually ready to come back to the UK after being in Australia about 3 years, and then got the opportunity for a job at Visa, which to me was like the holy grail of a job in payments, which I managed to get and ended up staying in Australia. Um, I was at Visa for 8 years doing my dream job. Uh, Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved my time there. But by the end of it, I had completely fallen out of love with working at Visa, and I realized that I was constantly chasing the next promotion, constantly, you know, focused on internal politics, and it was exhausting. And I realized that by the end of it, I was actually chasing other people's view of what success looked like and not my own. And I completely burnt myself out. Um, and being, I was often being groomed because I was a minority and I was ticking a lot of other people's boxes to get to the next step and get to the next level. But I never really stopped to pause to think why I cared so much about it. And it was when I actually became a parent, and you know, I was a mother of young twins, and I was kind of like, holy, you know, what is actually important to me? You know, that's always a big moment in people's lives of kind of really reflecting on what's important. And then, out of the blue, an opportunity came up at Square in Australia, and I remember speaking to Joey at the time and going, this opportunity's come up. There's no way I could do the job. I don't even know why they've called me. You know, I had a lot of self-doubt. But I went for it, and I went for the job, and I got it. And, you know, it was to do the role I'm doing in the UK now, but for Australia, essentially being the country manager without the title. Which I've spoken to Chris a lot about. And in a lot of ways, it actually really suits me because I you know, I love the organization. It's incredibly purpose driven, and it's made me realize what's really important to me is, you know, that purpose is incredibly important to me. And I've been able to get that at Square, and with that as well, I've been able to move back to the UK after living in Australia for 16 years, and wanting to be back near family, and having a young family of my own. It's been incredible to be back here in the UK. So I guess, you know, some of those key moments in my career has really forced me, and some of those expected turns in my career has really forced me to focus in on what's important. And that does change over the course of your career as well. What's important early in your career does change. And I think it's really important to either have those moments where you're forced to reflect on it, like being made redundant, or having an organizational change, or getting a new boss, which, you know, can be really hard if it doesn't work out. And refining and adapting to what's important for you. And I think I'm now in this moment of my career where it is an incredibly purpose-driven organization, but the moments, which I've been at Square now for over 3 years, and it hasn't happened very often, but the moments where I haven't felt truly motivated and I've reflected on why is because it's not always aligning with something that's purpose-driven. And that's actually sometimes gets lost. My organization is going through a lot of change at the moment, and it's quite exciting, and I actually love change. But I think I'm at a point in my career where making sure that whatever I do is truly aligned to my purpose and being aware of what that purpose is as well. So at prior to this point in time, it was really about, it was very aligned to Square's purpose, which is economic empowerment, helping the underdog with these great financial tools that haven't been available through traditional financial services. So it super aligned to my passion. But I think I'm kind of getting to that point in my career where actually that is my organization's purpose, but my purpose is absolutely about helping the underdog and really helping people sing their song. And it's about finding, what that next career step is for me, whether that's next year or in 5 years' time, that's really going to help continue to drive that purpose. So I'm going to pause there. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we hear other people's stories.
Hey, thanks so much, Sam. I actually love your purpose. I recall us discussing that at Yarraville Cafe a long time ago. I'm going to open up to questions if anyone wants to ask questions to Sam directly. Come on up closer. Rob? Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. Loved your talk. I was just going to ask you, I have a daughter here in Australia who does contracting work for Square in Los Angeles, and she does the social media. So my question was about your company, its commitment to social purpose and the use of social media, and how you use that to kind of align those objectives, or do you sometimes feel there's a conflict that you're dealing with in that space?
Look, when I'm talking about, Square, it is incredibly purpose-driven. It's the first organization I've ever worked for in my 30+ years, which really does what they say. So many organizations say, we're here for XYZ and this is our purpose, and everyone has a mission and a vision and everything Square does is purpose-driven. And when it comes to, even the founding story was because the founder couldn't accept credit card payment, and they ended up designing a little dongle that you can plug into your mobile phone, because everyone has a mobile phone, and they had the jacks then, and they designed a little dongle which maybe you're familiar with, that you can plug into a phone and swipe a credit card. And now that's really evolved, and they've got a lot more tools and solutions for all types of business owners. But everything Square does is to really enable anyone to participate in the economy. And they use social media in a couple of different ways. One is to talk to their, we use social media because that's a way of talking to our customer base. Because, you have entrepreneurs who are casual sellers who sell at their local market stall on the weekend, or you have entrepreneurs who have multi-million-dollar, multi-location businesses, but they're all either using social media as an individual, or they're using social media to promote their business. So we have tools that allow businesses to sell on social media as well, and we have tools that allow businesses to market on social media. So a lot of what we do is to help anyone be really good at commerce, even if they're not. That normally an entrepreneur is very good at their trade. They may be a very amazing baker, or they're, a copywriter, or they're, whatever it is they do, they're not necessarily very good at commerce. And so we'll design the tools, and we'll use social media to either talk to the end users, and we use that a lot. So I'm sure your doctor's really busy. Or we use it to help sellers actually sell what they do. So kind of integrate into social media apps where a lot of commerce happens these days, like TikTok and Instagram.
Hey, thanks heaps, Sam. We're kind of running out of time, but two things that stuck out for me. If you do have a question for Sam, we've got time at the end, so hold on to it and come up. But I love the fact that you described falling out of love with your dream job and ticking someone else's boxes in terms of your leadership journey. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to pass to a colleague of yours as well, Sam. So Robin, over to you to tell your story.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here talking to you today. I thought I might share a little bit about my career journey in terms of strategies for career progression. I guess any of us could Google how you could do that, and it would come up with lots of great ideas around networking and setting goals, having a mentor, or stepping outside of your comfort zone. And they're all absolutely fabulous things that we should be subscribing to. But I'm going to share my story, which is, I guess, a little bit different to that, and some insights that I've gathered along the way. And I think my first, whilst I started my career relatively late in life and moved to Melbourne about 10 years ago. I grew up in a small country town outside of Adelaide in country South Australia. And when I moved here, I was certainly motivated and disciplined and worked hard and all of those things, and thought that my purpose was really around working hard and having integrity. And I hadn't really firmed up what a good purpose was or what mine was. But a turning point was when I actually attended my dad's funeral, and it was just this huge funeral. We had about 1,000 people come and attend this funeral in this small town. He was a small business owner. And all these people were lining up to tell me stories about my dad and how he had helped them in all sorts of ways, whether it was helping them get healthy or whether he'd helped them have confidence to be able to achieve something that they otherwise couldn't, or whether he'd helped them, give them a role when they'd come here from another country. But all the similarities across all of these stories were that at one point they had worked for my dad. And so it was really humbling to be able to think about the way he made a difference in people's lives, and through those principles of kindness and generosity and just simply, I guess, being humble and taking an interest in others. And for me, it was a real turning point around what my role was in my career and how I wanted to be a truly authentic version of myself. I was always authentic in the sense that I was who I was, but I think I presented a much more polished version of myself up until that point. And then after my dad's passing, it gave me this permission and the courage to be truly myself. And so for me, that was the country girl from South Australia. And my purpose was very much around wanting to help people and to give them the courage to surprise even themselves about the things that they could achieve in their careers. And so knowing that my purpose was to build confidence in others so that they could achieve great things and we could achieve great things together, it changed lots of the ways that I led. So some practical examples of that was I spoke really plainly and simply in a world where most people were trying to compete around fancy language and verbose language. And I tried the opposite, tried to make sure it was very clear and people could understand what I was saying and be able to operate in a way that was really without any ego, to be really clear and transparent that I was trying to help them. And so through doing that, the impact was that I was able to build confidence in others, build more confidence in myself. And then what happened was people wanted to work with me. And as a result of that, more leadership opportunities became available, and I got to lead much bigger, much larger teams at a much faster pace than what I ever had before. The irony being that I was simply just more myself than I had ever been. So step one for career progression is certainly knowing yourself and knowing your purpose. I think another part of my learning was having a plan and being 2 steps ahead, in the sense that whilst I always had a role, the the goal in mind that I wanted to be a CFO, I was certainly open to other opportunities if they came along. And so with that, I was really conscious that not to be afraid to sidestep and not always have the goal that it always has to be a steep slope to get ahead. And so sometimes we need to be able to get in our helicopter. And what I say, why I say that is because when you're in the helicopter, you're off the ground and you can see the whole picture, and potentially there are other things that the roles that you can take that may be able to help you in your progression that may not necessarily be step ups, they may be side steps. And one example of that was when I left a finance and operations role, which was a very broad role at JB Hi-Fi, a very successful business. It was to take a specialist role, leading a very small specialist team in a business called Wesfarmers, and in a role that doesn't exist outside of Wesfarmers, because Wesfarmers they operate their businesses quite differently. Many people told me that that was a sidestep and it wouldn't take me anywhere, and it was a bad move. But I was looking beyond that. I was looking 2 steps ahead, and I was thinking around the broader opportunities within Wesfarmers. And also more broadly than that, I was aware of things like they were much further progressed in terms of their gender equality, for example, than other businesses. So for me, it was about much broader long-term strategy. And similarly, I never really got hung up on salary along the way. A lot of people get quite hung up around what their next role is and feeling like that salary is such an important part of the journey. And whilst it is important, and in an environment where gender equality has progressed but still remains very much behind, I could carve a whole separate conversation on how to have those conversations. But my overarching principle was to focus on the role and to love the role and to love what I was doing and to believe that the money would take care of itself in the end. And I guess the other final thing that I would say around career progression is certainly in my journey of having led large, broad teams, small, complex teams, and have met lots of different people along the way, that the biggest blocker for career progression is usually ourselves. And so having belief in ourselves is actually the biggest blocker or aid to our future success and our career progression. And so I think for me, it was always 3 words or 3 things that I would keep in mind, which was behave, believe, become, in the sense that we've all heard about culture and we know so much around culture, whether it's good or bad. But what's fitting is that, for us to be able to become what it is that we want to become, first we have to behave in a way that matches what is in fitting with the culture or in fitting with the leaders around us. So certainly behaving in a certain way. And then when we think about belief, ultimately, if we continue to behave that way, we'll start to believe those things. And then that is who we will become. So in thinking about a practical way of how to do that, I guess some of you may have read the book by James Clear, Atomic Habits. And one method he talks about in that, which was something that I had been doing for years, was that one of the behaviours that he talks around having an ability to lead to remarkable results is to think like the person who has achieved or is doing what you are aspiring to do. So in his example, the way he sets that scene would be, if you were trying to get healthy, you would think like a fit person. So would a fit person eat a whole heap of KFC now and watch TV in front of the couch? No, watch, yeah, and the fit person would not do that. So think like a fit person. So I was very deliberate about that for a really long time, in terms of, whilst I networked and I had mentors and I sought CFOs out and I asked questions and I did all of those things, ultimately what I tried to do was put my mindset and I thought like the CEO or thought like the CFO, so that I behaved that way. And so now, when I was head of commercial, and I always wanted to think like the CFO and act like the CFO. And now that I'm the CFO, I try and think and behave like the CEO. What would the CEO do? And a practical example of that now is I've put my hand up to lead a launch of a brand, which is very atypical of a CFO, but it is certainly typical of a CEO. And so that's one of the reasons why I did that. I think I'll pause there. I'm probably out of time, and hand back to the team. Thanks, Joey.
Robin, that was incredible. We probably have time for one question, so I'm going to put yours aside, Chris. Does anyone want to have a question to Robin in behaving the way that you want to become by believing yourself? Someone ask a question? No. So Chris,
Okay.
fire away. Yep.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, how you going? So
Good.
lovely to see you.
So lovely to see you too. And remember that conversation you might remember when we were talking about your time at JB Hi-Fi.
Yes.
And the behaviors weren't necessarily aligned with you.
Mm.
So how do you counter that then? You know, just because you've talked about aligning with leaders that you want to become, then how did you, I mean, I kind of think I know the answer to it because we did talk through this at the time, but you know, I just thought it might be useful because there's a number of people probably who've experienced the absolute antithesis of what they'd ever want to be.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what the beauty of having poor leadership is that it still creates great learnings. So you get to learn what not to do just as much as you can learn what to do through the demonstration of fabulous leadership. So I guess I learned a lot in my time at JB, whilst the leadership style at that time wasn't necessarily aligned, and it certainly wasn't as forward thinking as, for example, a Wesfarmers business in terms of its gender equality and our subconscious bias and all those sorts of things. It was very much enabled me to then strategize about how do I get into a business that is aligned and that will support the growth that I want to aspire to achieving. Having said that, that doesn't mean that every single leader you come across or every single person you come across is going to be aligned or going to operate the same way or have the same cultural beliefs and behaviors as you. So I think we're always going to come up against that. And I think that's where knowing yourself and having a purpose is a really great centering and guiding, because at the end of the day, that's what guides your behavior and keeps you grounded and gives you the permission and the courage to be true to yourself and to continue to lead in the way that you know is right, regardless of the influence, no matter how powerful that may be from the leaders around us.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Rob. I'm going to finish it off with 3 C's because it's clear that you're a very competent, compassionate, and confident leader. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks, Joey.
Hold on, because there's lots of questions, but we're going to pass on to Hasina. I know, Hasina, you asked a question. I'd love you to, so from your story, then you can either discuss it as part of that or at the end of your story around the role of coaching. So over to you, Hasina. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Hi, Chris, and hi, everyone. Yes, I think I would like to start with my career journey. I started very earlier my career because I started it at 16 years. Actually, I have no idea of what career could be, but just the messages that my father gave me at this time is take your responsibility and build your life the way you would like to do this. And here in Madagascar, with our culture of when you were a woman, you have been settled to be some kind of person which will be married and then you will have kids. So when I listened to my father telling me that I have to take my responsibility and I have to build my way, it was really surprising. But anyway, my career journey, I said before, 28 years of professional experience. And what can I say is that I have gone through all stage of adult development. And if I can sum up those years, it's sort of learning, unlearning, and learning. And it was really well overwhelming, all the stage I've gone through, because there were ups and there were downs. And I think in this career journey, I can take some major transitions from that. So the first one was entering in the entrepreneurship. You know, have started my career being an employee. And I think when I decided to switch from being an employee to being an entrepreneur, it was really about, it's like I heard again my father telling me, take your responsibility and build your life the way you would like. Because when I was experiencing being an employee, I have followed purpose of the company. So it was really difficult sometimes, you know, when you have to do something which are not part of in coherence with your values. And the second major transitions that I had in my life, in the career, I think, is when I chose to be in coaching, you know, in 2003, now 20 years ago now, I decided to go on coaching and helping people, accompanying people to build also their life and to take also their responsibilities. And what I've learned from these two major transitions is the importance of accountability and adaptability as a person first, and then as an entrepreneur and as a coach. I had in my career some turning points. So I think I have 4 turning points in both personal and professional lives. So the first one, I think, is experiencing loss. Experience and loss of loved ones, experience and loss of clients, experience and loss of marketers, something like that. So then you were in sort of unexpected things, and you can feel. I heard of stories of Sam, and she said of sometimes feeling lost. So I was experienced. It was a turning point for me, because it will help me to go through that loss and to understand why this happening for me. The second turning point I would like to share also is feeling gratitude, because in 2016 I have the opportunity to meet Reverend Jesse Jackson, and he taught me something about leadership that I have not forget. He told me that being a leader, you have to listen to your inner voices, because when you are a leader, you hear a lot of voices, and you have to learn to listen to your inner voices. So that was the first thing he said to me, and I kept it in mind. He said, you know, you be with lots of people going to congratulate you, going to say you good things, but you have to listen to dissociate it and to listen to your inner voices when you were a leader. And also when I was at Harvard, I kept this message of make difference. You can make difference in any time or any place you can be. You can make difference with your work. You can make difference with all your experiences, and also you can enable people to have power. And what I have learned from that is that when you are in a position of leadership, you have to serve a collective purpose as well. And the last turning point in my life, I think, is, I said before, that I entered in the coaching field, and I discovered the role of coaching in career path, in career transformation, because we know our stories, we know our past, and coaching really help us to bridge the gap between where we were, where we are now, and where we desire to be. And also, it's a kind of challenging yourself and give spaces to those inner voices that we tend to forget, because we are in our routine and we are in front of our challenges. And the role of coaching is to help people to improve and to readjust and to be adaptable. And it's also a kind of, you can build and you can rebuild your leadership style. And that's what I kept from my career journey, is that you build something, but you have to rebuild it because, and we have seen it 3 years ago, 4 years ago with the COVID, that even though you have many years of experiences as a leader, sometimes when you have the universe telling you that is the fact, that is the reality, everybody will have COVID. You have to rebuild yourself. And the role of coaching is totally take your power back from this uncertainty and enable you to have power again and again, to go back to yourself, to trust on your path, and also to build a new timeline if needed. And it's a kind of, I used to work on it with my clients in coaching, because I used to coach CEOs, I used to coach executives, and I used to coach high leaders in the public sector here in Madagascar. And what is important in coaching, and the role of coaching in this career transformation, is building the story of self first, building or rebuilding the story of self, building the story of the us, so the collective purpose that we have to settle, and building the story of actions, going beyond theories, but going into practice and unexpected practice, and to create the link between all that. And also it's, I think the coaching really helped to accompany people to take the power from loss, to take the power from failures, to take the power from differences, to take the power from power inequalities. So then having another vision of difficult things, or task compensation, of challenges. And I have seen it, I've experienced it in my life, because I have gone through difficult things, tough things. But I think the fact that I decided to face all these challenges and to understand why is it happening, and to take the power from it fully make the difference. Because coaching, the role of coaching career transformation, is that transformation doesn't mean you were done. Transformation means that you're going to improve yourself, and you're going to increase yourself and to enough something new, and you have to accept that. So I think this is what I wanted to share with you today, is that we talk about transformation, we talk about resilience, and we talk about coaching as well. We don't know, life is unexpected, and sometimes we have to think difficult things and tough challenges that we have gone through, because all those things help us to grow if we decided to have another vision and to have another way of seeing, of living, of being. And if I can sum up all of this, it's totally you have to think in your life and to take your power back from all you have gone through in your personal or in professional life. I don't know if I'm out of time or.
Hasina, that is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. We've probably got time for one question, and then I'm going to throw it to Gina. Has anyone got a burning question for Hasina? Hasina, I have one, but we'll come back to it and I'll let you think about the answer. I visualized what you described as I started off with 5 Lego blocks and I could only build one thing, and 20 years later, I have 50 Lego blocks and it's my chance to rebuild that new vision. So it's been very empowering, but I want to hear your thoughts about that after we hear from Gina, if that's okay. Gina, are you still with us and awake?
I am.
Okay,
I'm
over to
very
you.
much awake. Thank you. My turn now. You're going to hear some similarities. It's been interesting listening to these 3 wonderful women. You're going to hear reference to an underdog. So Sam, that resonated. You're going to hear reference to the impact of a father, Robin, that resonated. And the impact of coaching, Hasina, is going to be woven through my career journey conversation with all of you today. It was quite serendipitous, and that's a word that I'm going to come to later on again. I had to move downstairs because my family's sleeping upstairs for other reasons. And I picked this spot, and I just wanted to very quickly point out, we're talking about shifting careers. And what's behind me is, I hadn't intentionally thought of doing this here. It's a triptych, so three photos. And it's actually of an old repurposed, an old boat in Greece that is now wonderful artwork. But the power of it is as well that the artist or the photographer who created this used to be a banker and made a career transition. So not only is this boat repurposed into a wonderful piece of art, but it's also the person behind it had his own transformation. So it's quite fitting in a really weird way for me to be in front of this as I have my career journey conversation with all of you. So my topic was shifting careers, and we've heard a lot about it from the others. I'll just give you a bit of a background. There are two in particular, two transitions that I want to focus on in my 30+ year career. Here in Toronto, I'm probably one of the only people, I think I am the only person who has been at all three of the Toronto universities and the Toronto law schools in some way, shape, or form. But let me just go back because the very first transition starts with me even going to law school. I had initially thought I'd be a teacher and didn't want to be, didn't even think about law school. But there was one pivotal moment for me when my parents, who were Greek immigrants, were involved. They were small business owners. They were involved in a commercial dispute, a small commercial dispute, and had hired one of the few Greek-speaking lawyers in the city at the time. And I would travel with them to their appointments and observe my mother leaving each and every meeting with her own lawyer, in tears. He would find ways to make his own client cry. And it was in that situation where I thought, I do not want to have any other immigrant, regardless of background, feel that they are somehow lesser, somehow felt to be made completely incapable of action because of a language barrier, because of an academic barrier. I wanted to be able to offer choices to people who needed legal services. So that's what got me to law school. However, as I mentioned, I'm a first-generation law student. I had one person in my family, my cousin, who had even gone to university. The rest of the family had no clue what the process of law school or university was like. And so I can still remember, even though it was, and forgive me for giving this date, but it was September, the fall of 1988, so that's aging me a little bit. I still remember Dad dropping me off at the front, and there was a long way to go into the law school, and the sense of self-doubt, not belonging, was overcoming me. And I still can see myself walking up that pathway to the doors of Osgoode Hall Law School and thinking, what am I doing here? They must have made a mistake. Whether you call it the imposter syndrome, whether you call it self-doubt, whatever term you want to play on it, that's how I was feeling. Here was a child of Greek immigrants to Canada who had a 3rd and a 6th grade education. As I said, the first person to go to university or to law school. But I was there and I wanted to make my family proud. And that was something that was very important to me. My dad and mom had worked hard so that I could sort of have this opportunity. So I stood a little bit taller and I kept at it. There were elements of law school that I did enjoy, especially when I got to be part of legal clinics that did hands-on experiencing and hands-on support of clients. That was where I really got a good kick out of law school. And I thought, okay, there's something here. When I started practicing family and civil litigation after graduation, there was a gnawing feeling in my stomach. And Chris, you told us to be real, so here we go. For about 4 years, that pit in my stomach that kept thinking, am I really meaning to do this? Do I really like this? Is this what I want to do? I would fail the doorknob test. Does anybody know what the doorknob test is? When I mentioned the doorknob test, I would get off the elevator at my office. We were on the 12th floor at that time. And I would go towards the door and I would put my hand on the door, and more times than I care to admit, when I turned that knob to open the door, I have a sinking feeling in my stomach. I thought, I don't want to be doing this. And I kept walking through the door. So I failed the doorknob test on multiple occasions in those 3 to 4 years when I was practicing law. And I say 3 to 4 years because, and don't get me wrong, I love the people I was working with. for the most part. I loved the clients that we had for the most part. But there was something about the work that just didn't sit well with me. And in that 4th year, Hasina, that's when I discovered career psychologists. We didn't have coaches back at that time. And so career psychologist that I found, this wonderful woman who I went to in a panic, in a terror, saying, is this what my career is going to be like? I was a little girl who told all her girlfriends, I am not going to just have a job. I want a career. I had no clue what that meant when I was 10 or 11 and I was saying it, but that was me. And here I was with a career that other people thought was fabulous, and I was feeling horrible. And so the instance in that time with the career psychologist, I remember, was this very conservative woman, at that time older, and I think back now it's all relative because she was probably about my age at that time. And she asked me once, are you having fun at work? And I paused, looked at her really, really strangely and said, I think you forgot that I told you I'm a lawyer. I cannot have fun. I'm supposed to be serious. Robin, you talked about putting on an act. I had to behave in a certain way that felt completely unlike who I really was. And she paused and started laughing and saying, you have permission to have fun at what you're doing. If you can't enjoy your career, for the most part, not every single day, but if you can't really enjoy your career and have fun with it, obviously you need a change. And so she got me to thinking about what other opportunities I could do. But by doing so, it created this first issue that I wanted to reference during this first transition away from law into something else, which was a crisis of identity. I was a lawyer. You know what a lawyer does. You know you might watch movies or have TV shows or favorite books about lawyers, or your favorite scenes in movies. People were identifying me in that way. I had an image to uphold. Who was I to be if I was not a lawyer? And that I hear over and over and over again with my students, now with my clients. That crisis of identity was so strong until I found a role that resonated so beautifully with what I had learned were important values to me: the underdog, the learning, and the desire to educate and help be in an educational environment. An opportunity to start a career development office at my alma mater. We never had career services offices, and I know that there are people in the group who are higher ed professionals. We never had a career service office in any of the Canadian law schools at that time, and my alma mater was starting one. And there was something about that, helping students decide what to do with their careers, that I thought, oh, I'm in law. I do understand what they've gone through. Maybe I could do this. But that identity crisis was still gnawing at me. I thought, how can I leave this? And my biggest challenge for me, I was a grown-ass woman, if I'm allowed to say that word right now. I was married at the time. And I had my career. I was living with my husband in our home. I was worried about what my dad would think. Here was this immigrant man who had worked hard to educate his daughter. What would he think about me not being a lawyer anymore? And I still, to this day, remember being very, very nervous about telling Dad that I was going to leave the practice of law. And I should have known differently, but I still remember the day that I told him. And God bless him, he was always very pragmatic and always had this motto of don't worry, be happy, things will work, hardworking. He looked at me when I told him and he said to me, he asked me this one simple question. So first was my career coach who asked me if I was having fun. And then Dad turned to me and said, would you be happy? And I said, Dad, yeah, I think I would be. Good, then go ahead and do it, and just do it well. So that, to me, again, permission to enjoy the work that I'm doing, permission to be happy at what I'm doing were huge for me, being able to surpass that crisis, the identity crisis that I felt. And so I didn't look back. I left practice after only 4 years, and I've been in legal education and development and training for close to 30 years. As I mentioned, I was at all 3 of the universities. One last university that I joined did not have a law school. We got that started, and so there's 3 law schools now in Toronto. And along the way, leadership was a transition and learning opportunity as well. As I think some of the other speakers talked about, learning how to handle politics, learning how to handle, my bosses were changing every 5 and 3 years. Our deans and associate deans would change every 3 and 5 years, and learning how to adapt to that, still managing a team and getting the programs and the processes and the students and other stakeholders still monitoring along was really critical. But at some point, I came to the second transition I want to talk to you about. After being an employee, and I think, Hasina, you've mentioned this, what I didn't realize that I was doing at the 3 different institutions was something called entrepreneurship. So being able to create innovative new programs, new services internally at organizations, in my case, within the law schools or the university settings. And I realized that, remember, my parents had been small business owners. I had always thought I wanted that stable job, that certain job. And I put that in quotes because there is no such thing as certainty or stability necessarily, as we've all discovered over the last little while. But the second transition had a lot to do with me thinking, and it was longer than the first transition. First transition was about 4 years. My second transition towards entrepreneurship, from intrapreneurship to entrepreneurship, was about 12 years long. And I say that because I had been thinking about becoming a coach since I did my coaching training. Every time we'd have a coach training session, those weekends, I remember coming home thinking, that's it. And the next year, I'm going to be doing this full time. I want to do this full time. I have to be my own boss. I need to be able to be my own boss. But there'd always be yet another project or another program to develop, or something that was exciting for me to do that would always keep me back. But there was also something else. It was the voices in my head that told me I can't do it. Will I make enough money? Will I be able to support my family? Will I attract clients? Could I handle this without a supportive team? And I'd always had teams with me. How would I live without the benefits and pensions of a paid position? Practical questions, I think. And then the 2 that really kept me for the longest time. How did my reputation how was the reputation? Did it start and end with my universities, or had I actually become a subject expert for my own sake, and not just as a mouthpiece for the organizations that I was leading? And so that really troubled me for the longest time. And I would get excited one minute, freeze up another minute for years on end. I was impatient to make a change, yet scared out of my mind to do so as well. And one time when I realized just how scared I was to do it, one of our final programs was a pilot program, and we didn't know if we were going to get renewed. And I remember working from home before COVID, when we were still able to do work from home even then, getting a call from my boss telling me at that time our law society had actually declined to extend. And I remember hanging up and feeling literally like I got punched in the stomach, and thinking, nobody was home. I let out an anguished cry, and I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen now? And even though I had told myself that, don't worry, that could be a gift for you if it doesn't happen, because then you can go on your own, that reaction, that response that I felt in that moment told me I wasn't yet ready to do it. So fast forward, it took another 5 years until finally the voices in my head that told me I couldn't had, through my coach, luckily through my wonderful coach, who kept reminding me about the changing conversations that I had to have in my own head, changing conversations externally with some other people, practical things that I had to put in place ahead of time, and some skills that I still had to build up, I think were very important as well. That finally led me to 2022 last summer, when I was able to leave behind the world of employment and start up my own entrepreneurial journey. And I, again, just like I had no looking back when I left practice all those years ago, so far, no looking back as well. I think I'm where I am right now for the time being, and we'll see what the next chapter is. So Chris, thanks for allowing me the opportunity to share that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gina. And I've got some closing comments, but do you want to now go into the questions? And
Yeah, so I've got to stop or leave, Gina. We're talking another time because I've just freaked out. Anyone have a question for Gina before we move on to broader discussion? We're all a bit exhausted. I think everyone's kind of emotionally drained after this morning. Robin and Sam, you can concur when we did those experiences about holding something personal and remembering our childhoods. I do want to just open up.
Remember them very well. I can still remember some of the stories around the room, actually, from that day.
Helen said the same thing before. I do have one question I'd like to explore with this group and just dive in. If we talk over each other, that's fine. How do you maintain your belief in yourself and resilience during those times throughout your career?
I'm happy to kick off with something. I don't think, anyway, for me anyway, it's possible to do that completely by yourself. And especially in those moments of complete self-doubt and where you've totally taught yourself out of something, for me it's always been about knowing who those people are to lean on, and having those people who are, they talk about, having cheerleaders, having that table of people who are either going to be there to give you a cuddle and say it's going to be okay, or to go, you absolutely are going to do that thing, Gina, that you said you've been talking to yourself for years to do, and like, you better get up and do it. And actually having that support system around you, and if you're really lucky, having those people who see those things in you that you don't quite believe in yourself. And often that is a coach, or you're lucky and you just have those people in your life. But that's been really important to me, Joey, is having those people to lean on that I trust. And they're, people in your family, people in your professional life, friends, people that you might pay for like a coach, but having that variety of people around you as well to support you.
Thanks.
I'll also add, Sam, very briefly, I think it might seem like a small thing, but I'm going to put this out there to people. If anybody has their happy file, their testimonial file, whatever that is, because apart from the people that are there for you, whether it's a coach, a friend, a spouse, a parent, whatever the sake, whoever that might be, we all get gratitude messages. We all get complimentary materials or emails or texts. Keeping them in a file in a folder these days is so I used to keep hard copy emails from students who would thank me, and half an hour with them meant so much to them. I forgot sometimes the impact that it would have, and being able to then reach out into that happy file at times when you're having those doubts can really be somewhat beneficial.
Who else?
Hasina or Robin, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, from my side, I think definitely this journey helped me not only to maintain the resilience, but also I think increasing it and being totally okay. As I said before, it's taken back the power of from loss and from failures and from differences, because now with coaching, it helped me to have another vision and even to think tough challenges and difficult situations to go through that. And now I'm ready, always ready for the unexpected. And as I said, also thanking for life. And as I always said with my clients, is that life is like heartbeat. So you have ups and downs. And when you have downs, it's not just you're down, it's that you can rise again and again and again, and you can rebuild again and again and again, and rebuild from your past and from your past. So that's why you have to really think it. So resilience have increased through this journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Hasina.
And I think for me, Joey, as I've become, I think, more resilient, I've become more self-aware. So always aware of how I'm feeling to be able to catch my thoughts. And I think one of the things that used to almost paralyze me was the thought of fear and just being so scared of failure. And then when, even as teams or as an individual, if mistakes were made, the learnings that would come out of it and that you'd survive and you'd get through it gave me just a great sense of courage to be able to believe in myself and believe in the team. And I think when we can put aside that fear of failure and view it as something other than failure, it enables us to, I guess, to Hasina's point, take our power back and give ourselves permission to try and to go forward.
A huge thank you to everyone for the time, the stories, your authenticity, and your tools and tips. I'll hand to Chris to close us out.
Okay. Oh gosh, you don't know, this is such a dream for me, having so many people that I love in the room, either on on the screen or behind me. And so thank you for fulfilling my purpose, because my purpose is to help others find theirs, as you know, and therefore doing this work is just incredibly fulfilling. So I've just had this perpetual smile on my face with so many people around the room. And on here, Robin and Sam have been both students, both coaching clients, either now or before, and some of the people in the room, of course, are former students. So it's just been really special. I have two people who I met when I had big self-doubts at Harvard, when I did the, oh God, what am I doing here? And I feel so vulnerable and so unworthy. And to think, Hasina and Gina, that you've taken this time and put time into it for me and for the people here in the room who you know, will really remember this. I've got so many notes that I've made, but there was such a lot of, and I'm sure you all got this. I did a bit of a mind map, and I can't even find it now. A mind map of some of the points that you were making around, and how similar they were from you know, Robin's giving herself permission to be herself, and Hasina talking about listening to the inner voice, and knowing your purpose is what's important, and what is important to you, which was you, Sam, and of course the other things which not only Gina did support that too, but also you asked the question, and there's a number of people in this room that I know, because I've had conversations with them before, about having fun. Joey, for example, put it in his purpose statement that fun was something that you needed to have. You know, if it was a job worthy of doing, then part of that had to be about enjoying it and feeling that it was, that you were sharing something that you felt joyful about. So there was a real resonance there, but also people in the room who may have been struggling recently about feeling no joy in their job and feeling a little bit trapped on that, and they know who they are. But we've also got people in the room who are in transition, you know, transition as in moving out of work altogether, as in retirement or semi-retirement, and that's just as profound of the question of, if I'm not this, who am I, Gina? You know, who am I if I'm not working full-time, or who am I at any juncture in time? But anyway, I'm just super duper proud of knowing you all. You know, really genuinely from the heart, I feel like having a bit of a cry. I'm so thrilled and so honored and so thankful. So can I just say, everyone who's either going to bed or getting up, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. It was great to see you all and be here. Thanks.
It was a
Chris.
pleasure. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Pleasure. Enjoy.
Hasina,
Yeah,
good to see you
thank
again.
you so
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Loved hearing everyone's stories.
You too.
Bye all.
Hey, Gina.
Bye.
Sam.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya. Bye.
Someone stole my PowerPoint, put it in there. You know, who was that? Who was the person